Okay, so today we're gonna dive into some stuff that y'all shared with us
Right.
about pornography and real life intimacy.
Yeah.
And kind of try and figure out like what are the key differences between, what we see on screen and then
Absolutely.
what we actually experience.
Yeah, and it's I mean, it's amazing how much pornography is out there.
Right.
Like these days, it's so accessible.
It's everywhere.
It is everywhere.
Yeah.
And we're talking about a third
Yeah.
of all internet downloads being related to pornography.
Yeah, that's a huge nut.
It's massive. So
Yeah.
it's definitely having an influence whether we're aware of it or not.
Right, right. And you know what really strikes me is how, when you look at pornography, it's very produced.
Oh, absolutely.
It's like,
It's a fantasy.
yeah, the lighting is perfect. The camera angles are,
Yeah.
meant to show you everything you need to see.
Yeah.
And it's edited,
Well,
like
of course. No one's fumbling around.
nobody's
Nobody's asking where the
exactly.
yeah.
So it's like this sort of hyper real.
It's a highlight reel.
Yeah. Yeah.
Absolutely. I
Yeah.
mean, real intimacy is,
Right.
it's got its own.
Yeah, it's spontaneous, it's
Exactly.
emotional.
It's emotional. Sometimes it's clumsy.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah, exactly.
and it's pornography focuses on very specific acts
Right.
and visual spectacle.
Right.
But what you experience with a partner is
Yeah.
about a much broader connection.
It's about connection. It's
Yeah.
about all the other stuff.
Right.
And
Exactly.
it made me think too about like body image,
Yeah.
because you rarely see a diverse range of body types
It's true.
in mainstream pornography. And
Right.
that's,
Very curated look.
yeah, it's often,
Yeah.
very specific and sort of like unattainable.
Right. And
Yeah.
it's something to really think about is how these
Yeah.
limited portrayals, might be shaping your own
Right, right.
perceptions
Yeah.
and contributing to your own insecurities.
Exactly.
About your own body and your own abilities,
Totally.
and the lack of diversity in body types,
Yeah.
ethnicities, and, experiences. It's really striking.
Right. And I wonder too, if we're constantly seeing this like heightened, almost performance-driven version of sex,
Yeah.
does that like create unrealistic expectations?
I think that's a great point. And
Yeah.
actually, there have been studies
Oh, wow.
that have shown a link between pornography consumption
Really?
and dissatisfaction in relationships.
Yeah, makes sense.
And it makes sense if you're
Yeah.
feeling this pressure to
Yeah.
replicate these idealized scenarios,
Yeah.
that can lead to a lot of anxiety
Yeah.
when real life doesn't measure up to that fantasy.
Totally, totally. But, it's not all black and white, is it?
No, it's not.
Yeah.
It's definitely a more nuanced
Yeah.
conversation, I think,
Because some people find it to be,
Right.
a source of like personal exploration or arousal.
Absolutely. And it can serve those purposes for you.
Right.
But I think it's really crucial to understand
Yeah.
that it's often a very misleading
Yeah.
form of sex education.
Right.
Because
It's not real.
it's not real.
Yeah, yeah.
It's unrealistic and it's very curated.
It's curated, exactly.
Yeah.
And something else I was thinking about was like the idea of consent, because in
Yes.
pornography, there's this kind of like,
Understood agreement.
yeah, this agreement within the performance.
Yeah. It's all,
Right.
it's all implied, but in real life.
Right. You have to be explicit. You have
I think
to.
that's a really important point. And it's
Yeah.
what's fascinating is that difference between
Yeah.
that implied consent where the performers are understood to have agreed to the acts
Right.
being depicted on film and the absolute necessity
Yeah.
for explicit and ongoing communication
Yeah.
and consent
Yeah.
in any real life sexual encounter. And
Yeah.
I think, movements like Me Too have really underscored how vital
Right.
clear and continuous consent is.
Yeah. Yeah. For sure.
Yeah.
For sure. And it just makes me think about like, we have to be having these conversations with our partners
That's
about
what's
like
like-
boundaries and
It's all about communication.
desires. Yeah.
Yeah.
Open and honest communication.
Absolutely.
And then, we were also talking about like how pornography like affects your brain,
Yeah.
like neurologically.
Well, it's interesting because, when you consume pornography,
Right.
it can trigger dopamine release,
Yeah.
which is part of the brain's reward system.
Right.
So, that's something to just kind of be aware of,
Right.
in terms of understanding your
Yeah. Like your patterns.
patterns of use. Exactly.
Yeah.
And, we're even seeing this emergence now
Oh, yeah.
of like ethical or feminist pornography,
Yeah. What is that?
which aims for more consensual and diverse representation.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah. So it really raises that question of like,
Okay,
what
wow, yeah.
kind of content What were
Yeah.
you engaging
It
with?
consuming.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So, thinking about all this, I'm curious for you.
Mm.
What do you see as like the main bridge
Um,
between that fantasy of porn and the reality of intimacy?
well, I think you said it earlier, like
Yeah,
education is key. Like
definitely.
we need to be having comprehensive sex education.
Yes.
And we also need to like have these critical thinking skills
Right.
about like the media we consume so we can,
Think about context.
yeah, contextualize pornography and be like,
Exactly.
okay, this is a fantasy. This is not,
Porn is a fantasy.
reality.
Reality thrives on connection
Yeah,
and communication.
right. Yeah, that's huge.
Yeah.
So if we're taking away just a couple core ideas from this, like what would you say?
I think mindful consumption is crucial for you.
Okay.
Really be aware of what you're viewing and
Yeah.
its potential influence.
Right.
Prioritize open communication with your partners.
Yeah.
And really seek out diverse and realistic
Right.
information about sex and intimacy.
I love that. So it sounds like what you're saying is like, pornography might be present in our lives,
It's part of the conversation.
but it shouldn't be the like main lens through which we
Yeah.
understand or set expectations.
I think that's a really insightful way to put it.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's great. Well, thank you so much for joining us for this deep dive.
My pleasure.
And to all our listeners out there, keep thinking about this stuff, and we'll see you on the next one.
Sounds good.
Bye.
Take care.